Convene the meeting of Weddington Planning Board that was recessed on September the 22nd. We have a quorum this evening. Since it has already been read into the minutes regarding, but to reaffirm, since we have members that were not present, I'll go around the table right quick and reaffirm that there are no conflicts of interest with regard to the matters this evening. Any conflicts?
None.
No.
No. All right. So we are resuming the meeting September 22nd, and I'm going to ask the town planner to give us an update on what has transpired since we recessed the meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. We do have public comments before we go.
There will be no public comments this evening. We have already had public comments on the previous meeting.
So procedurally, the meeting was recessed incorrectly, so we had to recall a special meeting. And
So we're not in recess. We are
right,
that was
only
Special meeting.
special meeting.
Yeah.
And with the public comments on the agenda, we have
Okay. In that case, I was under the impression, based upon my watching the meeting, that this was recessed.
That was the original.
That was
plan.
previously correct.
That was previously correct. All right. In that case, we'll have public comments. All right, Clayton.
All right, Clayton Jones, live at the Panhandle, and unlike future comments, I'm going to keep this one very short. You guys probably know the UDO better than anybody else. That's one of the most important things of your job. And I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I couldn't help but hear that you all got the new appendix, 2B, and that's great. That was an improvement to the UDO. The only comment I'd like to make is, I think it was clear from the town council that the appendix is something that must be complete. And I understand, again, not eavesdropping, but I overheard some of your comments, that maybe it still may need some tweaking. And if that's true, then that's not unreasonable. So it needs to at least be reasonably, the application needs to be reasonably complete before you take action and send your recommendation to the town council. And here's the only caution I would give you. If you no doubt have thought about what two options the council may take if they don't deem that it's reasonably complete. One is they could still take action on it based on what you recommend and public comments. The other thing is they could send it back and say, you need to get those extra items and you need to reconsider your recommendation. But I suggest to you, I think there's a third option that you might not have thought about, and I call it the kiss of death. If it's not reasonably complete, I think the town council on the face of it can say this is not complete and deny the application without even considering the merits. Just my opinion, but that would be a terrible thing because I've met the Helms who owns this property, and every time I've spoke about this project, I want to see it go forward. I think the world of the Helms. I think they need to be able to enjoy the rest of their life with whatever they can make out of this development by selling their land. I want to see it succeed. But I do not, worse, it's bad enough if it comes back to you, but I definitely do not wish the kiss of death on this. So I trust you guys. I know you'll do the right thing, and I may not hang around for your vote, but I trust you guys. Do the right thing. Good luck to you guys.
Thank you.
All right. No other person signed up for public comment, so that will close public comment. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. With that, then we'll proceed with town planner's update of what has been submitted.
Thank you, Chairman Setzer and the members of the planning board. Just to clear up some parliamentary procedures and to clarify why we're all here today on a Thursday rather than a Monday and what occurred at the previous meeting. At our regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, September 22nd, this meeting was recessed but it was recessed without a time, place, and location. And under general statutes, you have to say when you're going to return in order for it to be kind of immune to reposting and re-advertising requirements under state law. So we had hoped to adjourn on Monday. That did not occur. We are now resuming the meeting on Thursday, and technically this is a special meeting. So we don't necessarily need to get into the differentials of a special meeting versus a recessed meeting, but we're coming back to discuss the same topic item. We're not here to discuss any other topic items that were on the previous agenda of September 22nd. We are simply here to discuss the discussion and possible recommendation of an application by Keystone Custom Homes for conditional zoning approval of a conservation subdivision that's 50% open space with smaller lot size for 12 lots on Forest Lawn Drive. My previous staff report is in the record. You can watch it on YouTube or whatever minutes you wish to see my previous statements. I will recap some of the statements and general facts to this board because several members were not here for that previous meeting. Again, this is 16 acres, 12 lots. It is single family zoned, and it's on an RCD lot that would be developed in a conservation style, which means that the lots would be at least 1,800 square feet, a average of 20,000 square feet in return for setting aside 50% of open space. This site is topographically challenged off Forest Lawn. There is floodplain and a creek on the back side of the property. It is flat on the front. That is where the thoroughfare buffer, the 100-foot thoroughfare buffer, which we hold in high regard in Weddington, would be located, but that is not where the trees are located. The trees are located in the back, in the floodplain and the steep slopes. There was a yield plan provided that showed the maximum yields was 12, but that would be a maximum yield of 12 with some steep slopes. Previous comments made at the planning board meeting was the feasibility of these homes with those steep slopes, how they would impact development, if those homes could be built on those steep slopes and what type they would be. I assume they would have a basement or a crawl space rather than being slab near the back of that cul-de-sac. This also is a subdivision that is applicable to our new cul-de-sac rules, to where basically a cul-de-sac can't be longer than 500 feet. Because there is adjacent undeveloped property, there's a stub out that's provided to that undeveloped property, which creates that break point of that 90-degree angle where they can restart that calculation and complete a cul-de-sac that is in compliance with code. So this would connect the undeveloped property. This is not an extended cul-de-sac because you're creating that right degree angle. You are meeting compliance with the UDO, and we actually encourage interconnectivity between our parcels, and this adjacent property will get developed over time. And so it's a positive note that they connect there. This planning board requested additional information from the applicant. So there was no decision made at the previous September 22nd meeting. It was not tabled, nor was it recommended for approval or denial. It was recessed for more information. So that recessed information was provided to the planning board, with now meeting on Thursday, 10 days afterwards. There's subsequent time for you guys to review that information. Some of the notes that were provided by the applicant, specifically Colliers on September 25th, they note that in regards to the materials on kind of that stub out, that it does not have to be paved. That can be just a all-weather surface for someone to turn around. So we, as code, just require that to be connected. They create kind of a T shaped turnaround at that location. That does not have to be a paved T, so to speak. That just has to be connected to the adjacent parcel, and it provides a turnaround per the fire marshal in that shape. Grading plans, additional information was provided. The main comment from our last meeting was basically that A condensed version of their engineered drawings was provided to the planning board. In speaking with staff and as the applicant, we thought, let's just provide the information that are pertinent to the planning board. I think we all agree now that the more information, the better, to be submitted up front and to be understood, particularly by the planning board as the technical review body, so that if it gets through us, so to speak, that the town council has more than enough information to say, this isn't an incomplete application. They haven't done their homework. They haven't done their engineering requirements. They have provided the information that you need, whether you can interpret it or not. And so 30 pages were provided to you by the applicant after the recess of the September 22nd meeting. Some of the other comments that were made by staff in the staff report was that this is, again, a conservation type development, which means there are some concessions that need to be made in order to get your smaller lot size. Some of those concessions that we address in code are that you provide walking trails and pedestrian connectivity, and you provide a neighborhood green. The applicant has provided documents that show why their preferred location of a neighborhood green is not suitable. That's mainly due to topography. It would be located at the back of the cul-de-sac of the property. And then some of their previously submitted site documents now show that trail. Staff's opinion remains the same on the project, the concept, and the submittal as a whole. We would like to see a neighborhood green. The burden is on the applicant to show why they cannot provide one. They've submitted that to you. You guys can determine if that's required or not. The exact verbiage of our code says that it should be required. It says neighborhood green required, but then it further states to the greatest extent possible. So if you guys determine that having actual preserved trees and trails are preferred to having a flat green that could be used as a ball court or something like that is more suitable to this location, which is a topographically challenged location, please state that on the record so that we know going forward that this is suitable. And the elephant in the room is Appendix 2B. So Appendix 2B was adopted by this planning board several months ago and adopted by the town council, which provides more stringent application requirements to the applicant. These guys have had to do basically engineered drawings for thousands and thousands of dollars to provide the evidence to you that they've done their homework and they know that they're going to build what they're supposed to build. I have email records from our chairman, Chris Falk, and others kind of asking for that additional information or questioning that additional information. But what we should determine based on comments here today is you guys are the technical review board. If you need additional information, which you've done before, request it from this board now. Because when it goes to town council, the information is not if this application is complete. The matter that should be voted upon by the town council is that this application meets our land use requirements and other goals as stated in our UDO. So the last thing we want is for this to be rejected on an arbitrary reason of not meeting Appendix 2B completeness. If this project is rejected, it should be rejected on the basis of not meeting land use goals as stated in our 2024 comprehensive land use plan. I'm available for any questions or comments you may have. You have 30 pages of very detailed sheets, which I'm sure that we can all clarify, both myself and the applicant.
All right, with that, I am going to open that up to the planning board members to comment with regards to what you've reviewed since the previous application. We'd like to get started.
Do we want them to present the new stuff that they sent us?
They have gone, we received that. They've done their presentation.
Okay.
We'll allow an opportunity in a little while to provide comment.
What I'll say is that I did provide some questions pertaining to 2B. Some of the reference numbers to some of the items that I didn't see on the original submittal. And they did supply corresponding pages to that information in their second submittal. So I appreciate that. So as far as I'm concerned, as 2B goes, I think we're okay. Well, I do. You guys make your own consideration on that.
I've got a few things. I think, Greg, you've already alluded to Chris's letter that he wrote, and I think, I'm not going to read his whole letter here. I just printed it off. He was very appreciative of the information being provided. Several of his questions, one had to do with BMP. The applicant has reflected storm drains on drawing 300 and 301. He had a question on the fire code, and the applicant has responded to that. He had talked about a drainage area in the front, or would it be needed? And on drawing 500, the applicant is showing a temporary sediment trap with ditches to divert the water there. He was very appreciative of that. He asked a question about the grade, and I think this was related to the sewer connection. And the applicant says sewer has been designed to Union County requirements. So that is good. He had another question on grading in the back. The applicant says, I think the previous plan showed both 1 and 2 foot intervals on the same drawing. And now you've got them broken out. So it was easier to read and understand. Chris had concerns about on the grading plan. I'll just read it. Steep slopes created on your grading plan seem to contradict our ordinance with wanting them to not be on lots. The response was the grading plans have been revised to show retaining walls. Actually says potential retaining walls. I don't mean that there'll be retaining walls, or you're not sure yet. On lot grading, slopes in the concerned backyard have been reduced. So I think he said that that was addressing his concern. The intent trying to eliminate this and get more to this. Walking path, that was a question I had raised, and I'll just get into it right now. I'm assuming the drawing I saw still didn't show a neighborhood green. And I know the UDO says neighborhood greens are required, and then we have the
greatest extent feasible.
right. It's kind of like our cul-de-sac ordinance. We say cul-de-sacs are prohibited, but then trying to work with people on the various things, we then have other things that said, however, but. So I put that in that category. I know I'm going from the UDO that a neighborhood green is required. Whatever the other wording is, I don't think it falls into that situation. So I'm saying it is required. I know the applicant said, well, we can put it in the back behind the cul-de-sac. We're going to have to take more trees down. It has a fall off. I think you said 15 feet or something. That's not the concept of a neighborhood green. I actually think that's also where your sewer connection goes in. So I'm assuming a lot of those trees are going to come out anyway as you put the sewer in. So my concern is the lack of a neighborhood green. I understand an approach, and I'll call it a workaround, is we'll put in a walking trail. A walking trail to me is an amenity. And if you look at Exhibit 2B under amenities, we specifically refer to walking trails, which means if you want to do one, that's great. Not necessarily required, but it's something you can do. So I'm thinking a neighborhood green is required, and right now it's not reflected in the plan. we can talk about that later if the planning board wants to. Well, the response is, we believe the best amenity for the neighborhood is a walking path, and that's great as an amenity. This plans exceed minimum requirements by creating a half-mile loop. And I don't know if that's a true statement, if that exceeds minimum requirements. I don't know whether that's just a little poetic license or what. I had questions, or there were questions, and Chris included in his letter, on the tree survey, other documents, which is required in 2B, which you did. And I really, in looking at the tree survey and the tree removal and mitigation plan, that's when I see you've identified in the survey 123 heritage trees, of which 107, 87% of them are going to be removed.
Are they heritage trees or are they just
No, they're
large trees?
well, I'm assuming they're heritage trees. I'm going by their drawing.
Because I didn't see that.
I didn't see it either until I looked at this. Heritage tree removal. And I'm just going by the plans on C600. And I understand, I did an overlay, I can see, hey, the way the roads are and the lots that, because it is so heavily wooded, it's going to be hard to maintain those trees. So, I mean, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But then we also require in the planting plan, and you did provide a planting plan, and you showed some potential trees for preservation, but part of the planting plan, as it relates to the tree ordinance, is what is your canopy coverage? And it's in there, and I'm sure this is over 40% right now, canopy coverage. And that's determined by either aerial photo, followed up by survey, whatever method you guys want to use. It's supposed to be approved by the urban forester, but I just think, my question is, do you know what the current canopy coverage is? Because I had this discussion with Greg on Monday, trying to get enough time for you to have that information. I'm sure you've got it just as part of your tree survey.
Members of the board. So as far as the total canopy area, I don't know that I'm familiar with what you're saying as 40% for the entire. In the code, it's more referred to the buildable area, correct?
Yeah, I'm just saying it. What it does, if the canopy, and I don't know the exact number. Oh, if the canopy coverage is less than 20%.
Within the buildable area?
Yeah, and then when you are done, it has to be a 10% canopy, which means you might have to plant some 2.5-inch caliper trees.
Mhm.
And what will they be at maturity to add back to that canopy? If it's greater than 20%, but less than 40%, then you maintain 20% canopy. If it's greater than 40% at the start, and I'm assuming this was greater than 40%, I don't know, just looking at it, then afterwards you should have a 30% canopy coverage. So
Yeah.
I was just looking, what is the canopy coverage before? And then afterwards, do you meet the, and I'm saying 40%, greater than 40% is what it is. I don't know, it hadn't been measured yet. And then afterwards, is there a 30% canopy coverage?
Not within the buildable area. And I think that's where there's a little bit of confusion in how the UDO is written
Yep.
as far as what the buildable area is. When you really look at the definition that's right above that, and you take out what's outside of the buildable area, there's some confusion on exactly what that is. So
I agree.
if
And
we
Greg and I talked about that on Monday. Go ahead.
yeah, so if we take what I think the intent of the project or of the UDO is, where it's the kind of the fingerprint that you're going to take out of the trees, and what is that area that's remaining afterwards, correct?
Okay.
And I think we ended up with around, I don't know, I think it was over 40% within that buildable area,
Mhm.
but we were keeping around half, I'm sorry, 15% of the, so 30 would be the required amount, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
And we were saving, I think, half of that and it was mainly up there on the north side, along that, those northern lots. And so, when you really look at that, and if that's the intent, is the buildable area is this limits of disturbance. You're looking at needing, if the entire project was forested, you're looking at needing to keep, your 50% outside, and then inside another 30%. So, that really limits development as it is. So there has to be some sort of replacement or
Mitigation.
discussion, mitigation discussion.
Yeah, and I understand that totally. I think that's another thing as we go forward, if we've got some areas that aren't real clear, we clarify those. So based on your thinking, do you feel that, because I don't think there's any tree mitigation plan attached.
There isn't, and we had some discussions with Greg as we were going through the review, and one of the things, like you mentioned at the last meeting, that we had additional trees within each lot. There's a minimum of 3, and we had 4.
I misspoke as I dug back in. I said 3 and you had 4. It is 4. And then
Okay, it is 4?
Then it
Okay.
goes to 6.
Well,
It's 1 acre.
I do believe we have more than the minimum requirement, and the replacement, the number of new trees does exceed the number of heritage trees removed.
Okay, but in terms of the canopy, are you saying,
We did not go through that analysis, and mainly just because it was my understanding that you look at it 2 ways, either with the canopy, which there's some confusion on how that's calculated, or by tree replacement. And that's, again, maybe an area of the UDO that may not be 100% clear.
Okay.
If I could speak to that.
Sure.
So the percentage of canopy is, as a code concept, is best applied to R40 type developments. Basically saying, listen, if you've got 2 acres of a lot, there's no reason to cut down your trees in your backyard. They should remain through steep slopes or other conditions. In an RCD scenario, you're already setting aside 50% of land as trees. And in this case, we're trying to set aside 50% of the land that have existing tree canopy. So we're trying to meet that intent there. What the discussion of buildable area occurred between myself and the applicant was, listen, you can't just declare a buildable area like the pad, which is one of your exhibits here, and say you're gonna clear cut that entire area. You have backyards, you have side yards, you have areas that are not impacted by easements, you have areas that are not impacted by driveway, you have front yards. What are the existing trees based on your tree survey that we've required you to do? Please indicate where we can save some of those additional trees to meet these calculation requirements. It's not so much saying like there's a binary tree area, not tree area. We're trying to achieve, okay, even if you have a building pad, that's still half of an acre. There's still existing trees on there. Where can you save those trees on that existing half acre? And for all the discussion about completeness of this application, the applicant has done their best to try to understand our tree requirements, our tree ordinance, and how to best meet those requirements. If there are additional exhibits that we need, I feel like we've tried to go through this process.
And if I might, the other thing that after we looked at that original tree save, that's when we came back and we were able to save even more, including those 3 heritage trees in the front that you'll see from Forest Lawn. So those weren't, part of that 15% that I mentioned before. And it's hard to get on an existing tree, what that canopy is going to be, because they're all next to each other. So you save one, we don't know what it's going to look like. We could average it, but we didn't get to that level.
Yeah, and our tree ordinance is more of a stick than a carrot. So if these guys say they're gonna preserve these trees, call it out and denote it on your plans, because if they cut that tree down, that's a very heavy penalty.
Well, that's where I was going. I appreciate on your planting plan, C601, you've identified some trees there, heritage trees, large trees that you're trying to save. And I certainly appreciate that. But if I look at the tree between lot 1 and 2, that looks like a big tree. I appreciate your efforts to save it. But if we approve this plan and you get in there and it's like, uh-oh, that tree's got to come down, that's an expensive takedown for you guys. So I want to make sure you balance, like, yeah, we want to save that, so we approve it as being saved. Then you get in there, find out it can't come down, or you run into some problem because it's right on the edge of the building pad. And let's say that's a 30-inch tree. You get in there, then it's got to come down. That's a $24,000 cost to you guys.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if the person builds their house and they don't want that tree right there?
And that's a great question. I don't know the answer.
Do they incur a penalty? It's their property.
No, I guess, I don't know, Nancy. It might be, tell the developers, listen, I don't want that tree, take it down. I don't know whether the developer says, fine, we'll take it down, but it's going to cost us, the applicant, $24,000 to take it down. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, when I built my house, I had a big pine tree close to my house, and I also had I think it was a big maple tree. I told the builder, I said, take down that pine tree. And it was literally this close to my house, and they took it down and they kept the other one. Of course, that was before tree ordinance. So I don't know.
I'm just saying that with the whole tree ordinance thing, I have great difficulty, especially in the RCD neighborhoods, because you already have a smaller lot and you have a building pad. If you're limiting the type of home, and the design that an individual property owner can achieve, what if they want a pool in the backyard, but they've got this tree there that we demanded that they save? What happens then? I have difficulty with the building pad.
Yeah. I'll open that up to other planning board members for thoughts.
From a staff perspective, the burden is on the development community to preserve and get credit for the trees that are on site. If a tree is diseased 10 years later and they're on a half-acre lot, our intent is not to penalize them, but for somebody who is developing land for the purpose of profit, we are trying to incentivize as best we can that a tree that is 70 years old is worth more than 700 small trees. You know, that those mature trees have significant value.
So, understand, are you building it out, or are you selling the lots and then building? Because I would tend to agree, once somebody buys it, it's no longer incumbent on them. I mean, if it's my lot, unless the town says.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, Scott. Is they built it out, that tree's there. Someone comes and they buy that house, said, I don't like that tree. I don't like
Or
leaves
even-
in my yard.
Even buys the lot before the house is built.
Pardon me?
Even buys the lot before the house is built. And that's, I don't,
I'll speak to that. So we're a home builder. We happen to develop. So we don't sell lots. We build homes. So we're buying this piece of land. A client chooses their lot, but they can't buy the lot. And then we build the home that they
Build the home,
choose
yeah.
on that lot.
Okay, to address, at least from my understanding of this, is that the requirements of this fall upon the developer. It does not fall upon afterwards does not fall upon the individual homeowner. Is that the fair assessment, Greg?
That is the intention of the
Intent,
UDO, as that is the opportunity for staff to review these measures. You know, we can't drive around town every day and see if somebody's got a chainsaw, but we can determine that the landscape plan provided to the planning board and then construction documents that shows the existing tree canopy and the tree survey that these folks have provided.
So in answer to your point, if someone buys the property and later decides, I would like to put a pool in, and then they have their own set of rules, again, but this individual landowner as opposed to a developer developing multiple home sites and multiple homes.
Yeah, but I'm still, and I understand that you build homes, but if somebody comes in and says, I want you to build me a home on that lot, but I don't want that big tree, what happens then?
It's not necessarily an option. Yeah. The land is,
Okay.
the land is the land in terms of the way we designed it. Correct.
We can't dictate from what's on the plans. The homeowner can't
Yeah.
come and say, oh, I don't want this cul-de-sac next to my house. We have to build like it is per plan, right? So they don't have that option to answer your question.
And along that same line, going the other way, is I overlaid your tree survey over your planting plan. It looks like between lot, the two in the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3. That there's a huge tree there that I would think could be saved. Now, I don't know, maybe as you get into topography or your grading, it won't be, but here's my real concern is, one, in terms of percent canopy, are we achieving it? Because I'm afraid what's going to happen, and I want to avoid this at all possible, people are going to drive by there and they're going to say, shit, they clear cut again. But if we're following the plan, you're not clear cutting. You've identified it. You're going to have a mitigation plan. And my concern is there do we have a mitigation plan, or have you, when it's all done, achieved that 30% canopy? Or at least you'll have it achieved when the trees are at maturity. It may be 20 years from now.
I thought I saw one where they put trees along the street. Did I
Yeah,
hallucinate on that?
no, they've got trees they're planting on various lots, and we require trees on the road. My only question is, does that get you to a 30% tree canopy?
If they're putting in more heritage trees than are taken out, would you have to figure that would?
I mean, they're taking out
And
107.
Bill, again, and I'm going to interrupt you just a second. What Greg explained a while ago is we probably need to go back and revisit this from an RCD standpoint, look at the deltas, because in RCD, you're already saying you're going to set aside 50%
And
as a canopy requirement. And so trying to get 30, now you're saying you got to have 80% coverage on the property if that's. the
no,
case.
you're missing my point.
no, that's what I thought. That's what I understood. you
No,
said.
I'm not
So-
talking about revisiting the UDO, doing clarification. I'm talking about getting clarity so we can make a recommendation to the council, because I know you guys want to get out here and get before the council.
So can you just clarify on the 30%? Because again, I go back to the UDO and those percentages are a little unclear. So what are you asking? If 30% of the existing trees that are out there today will remain, the answer would be yes. But we also have 50% that's already, 50% of the land that's covered in trees, we won't touch either way, other than the one utility easement that's going down the back,
Okay,
which by the way, takes out 4 heritage.
I guess what I hear you saying is you will have 30% canopy coverage.
Correct. At the end, yes. And mainly because we've protected the forest lands as part of the requirements for conservation. And we've tried to locate the subdivision to the north, or I'm sorry, to the front where
Right.
there's not as many trees. So the back, I'm sure, is over 30%.
That was my only question. I don't know if you've done a calculation or you're just saying, I'm sure it will be 30%.
I
I
think
want to help you guys. I want to get this through.
I
but-
appreciate that, Bill. And I think to Casey's point, the treed area, which is all the area that we're not touching, is greater than 50% of the land. So the canopy by default is greater than 30%, just looking at that conservation area, because it's all forested, whether it's heritage or non-heritage.
Yeah, and there are significant steep slopes on this property, including several potential residential parcels, which I question how you could save any trees on those. But what's important here is that both sides where the 50-foot buffer is included, those have significant amount of trees. And I think for the benefit of the board and or the town council, showing how the front will be supplemented is important. Because yes, if I were to stand on Forest Lawn Drive and I see the initial bulldozer drive into that development, I'm just going to see nothing but cleared land.
Orange soil.
Yes. And so one of the conditions that was suggested by Chairman Falk was to have Labella Associates review this plan, not on a construction document level, but at least to provide their professional expertise as engineers to what is provided, if the slopes make sense, if the ponds make sense, if the development is feasible, and then staff's other recommendation other than kind of determining the feasibility of a neighborhood green is if we can have an additional exhibit, if we could provide additional information on how that's supplemented in the front to further enforce that there's a forested property here. I think that's important. You know, we have one landscape plan that basically shows a dotting of trees. You can show species, renderings, other things. I think a visual exhibit would be beneficial.
With regard to the tree shade area, one question that I had, your sanitary sewer fall line goes, you show a right of way, a maintenance right of way for the storm sewer, but all you have are limits of disturbance on the sanitary sewer once it goes beyond that. What kind of an easement is required by Union County to maintain that? What's the width of that easement?
Is it 20? I thought it was 30. It's either 20 or 30.
And
But to your point, that easement will have to have trees cleared because we have to open that up.
exactly.
Install
And
pipe.
I'm also looking at I also looked at the profile, and the profile, you've got some big structures there. You've got a lot of fall in that area. I mean, you've got 10, 11 foot inside, between invert in and invert out. So you've got some deep structures there. Have you taken into consideration what that's going to do to your roots in the surrounding trees? Because you're going to have to trench box that unless you're going to take out a lot of stuff. You don't have room to bench it. Have you taken that into consideration with regard to the trees that are along that? Because right now you just show the limits of disturbance. It looks like it's 20 feet,
Correct, yeah.
20 feet.
And we looked at those trees in that.
Right, and you're gonna have at least a 6 to 8 foot wide trench, probably a 6 foot wide trench in there at minimum, and probably 8 to 10 in order to get your structures in. So are those things been taken into consideration with regard to your tree save, especially if you're around the heritage trees?
Right.
Those are the things we'll make sure those like Bill said. It's not my desire to have you fined for having damaged a tree if we can identify it now.
Well, everything in the path of the easement will be removed regardless. Anything outside of that will be preserved. So we don't anticipate impacting any of the trees that are heritage trees classified outside of those areas. And 20 feet is significant enough to get down to 10 to 11 feet of depth. We can still bench that. We don't need to trench box.
Okay. The reason I'm asking again, because you've got trees that are on that borderline that sit on that line. The canopy and the root ball, the root mat for that tree are going to extend into your limits of disturbance.
Understood.
Rather have you identify it now.
Yep.
So Can someone tell me what the answer to that question was? I see a 20-foot limit of disturbance,
Right.
and you're saying that's also the easement, or the easement's going to be wider than that?
Believe you set the limits at the easement line, right?
I'm sorry,
They're one and the same.
one and the same.
Easement line and the limits of disturbance.
Okay.
For the sewer outfall.
Yeah, again, you showed on the other, on the sanitary, or excuse me, on the storm sewer, you showed the easement. Of course, it's like a 30-foot right of way, I think, on that one. And then didn't see anything with regard to easement on the survey for the sanitary. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a 20-foot easement,
Okay.
or in a 20-foot limits of disturbance.
Okay.
So if this gets passed, a recommendation to council, are we saying the drawing, and it looks like it's C300, I've got the old version, I didn't print off the new one, that there needs a note on there that the limit of disturbance is also the easement?
Yes, at least have that.
The new plans show that.
Oh, it does? The new plan shows the easement?
No, it shows limits of disturbance. It does not.
What was
Should be.
what should have been the easement.
So all we're saying is limit of disturbance and easement are the same. I would just suggest that that be noted.
Need to note that, then just for record. And I'm sure it'll be that way once you get your plat for
Yeah, point of
recording.
clarification, yeah. Any easements, any deeded issues, that's typically not shown on a sketch plan, but that's what we require in our new schematic plans.
And the reason being is that we look at exactly what we're looking here. We don't have any say so over the sewer. That's between you and Union County, but we do look at it from how's it going to impact the tree ordinance?
Do you mind if I ask a question though, about Union County? I will note that, we're not through the process with Union County. I do want to ask the question, if they request a change to the path of that sewer and we have it on this plan, does that mean we need to come back? Or is there going to be flexibility to
I think-
follow the sewer line?
I think it's dependent on how big the change is. I'm looking to Greg here. If it's a little minor thing, I think Greg can handle that. If it's become something major, then yeah, I think,
Isn't the general rule of 5% change and then it has to be kicked back? That's just something I recall. I could be wrong about that, but
5% of what?
5% of the original, if something,
I mean, 5% of the original what?
Yeah, Again,
of the original plat, if something changes, or the final plat.
I'll address this. So we want the easement to be realistic, right? We want that to be what they submitted to the county at this time. We don't want this to be, I hope this is where the connection occurs. We want to say that the application is made. This is our connection. We have an understanding with the county at this time of where it can go. Things happen. But if it impacts the tree canopy to a greater extent, I would say they have to do it over again. If it's the same extent, it just bends a different way, but it's still just a 20-foot swath somewhere and reduces the same amount of trees or even less trees. No, should not have to come back before this board. It's a matter of impact.
That's the reason I was asking 5% of what. I mean, exhibit 2B, number 27, identification and delineation. And as you remember, we worked long and hard on delineation. It went up to the council, it came back. We actually put in a definition. Delineation refers to precise markings and documentation of boundaries, work zones, and responsibilities within the construction site. It ensures clarity between the project stakeholders. So I'm just saying delineation and it as sewer lines if applicable.
And
So again, I'm trying to answer these questions before. Last thing I want, and maybe I'm beating a dead horse here. Last thing I want is this to go up to the council. And the council says, kick it back to the planning board, or they may add some conditions, or they may say, we reject it. And if it gets rejected, I mean, that's the nuclear. I don't want us to get to that point. So I want to make sure when we recommend approval or we don't recommend approval, it's all based on Exhibit 2B. And our effort has been to make this as clear as possible so it doesn't get to the point where it's an incomplete application. And this is our first time through. So that's the reason, I think we've kind of going over this with a fine tooth comb. There's some things in here we're not even looking at, this says notify the school that you're building 12 homes.
We actually,
We did that.
actually asked them to do that.
Yes.
That was a point of contention at the time of application.
Yeah, so see, those are some of the things we'll improve as we go. To me, those are minor things. The things I've been talking about is tree canopy. Because we've received a lot of angst, like I said, of clear cutting, realizing this won't be clear cutting, but I want to make sure that we're real clear on, Mrs. Jones, this was not clear cutting. They went through, they met our tree ordinance and they had mitigation. They're required to have 30% canopy, and this has 30% canopy. But I want to see somewhere on the drawing or someplace there is a 30% canopy. Not you guys here saying, yeah, it's going to be a 30% canopy. That's where I'm trying to get to.
Okay, but can't we just deduce by looking at the plat that over 50% of the wooded lot is undisturbed, and we can say that 50%?
And I think that is probably correct.
Can we
All
not
I'm
just
saying
deduce-
is, it's asking, do you meet the 30% canopy?
Okay.
So it's simple. This does meet the 30% canopy requirement of the town ordinance.
Put it on record and the burden is on the applicant.
That's exactly what it is.
Put it in the
It doesn't mean anything unless it's identified and written down. And that should be that's a 1-minute fix for you guys, right?
Correct, yeah. If you need to put that as a condition, as a text reference in the plans, that's an easy fix.
Okay, so again, I hate to drag this on, but I'm trying to be as thorough as I can. Our first time through. I guess the only question I have, and it sounds like for you guys, it's a showstopper, is the neighborhood green. To me, a walking trail does not replace a neighborhood green. A walking trail is an amenity. The UDO requires a neighborhood green. Early on, and I had this discussion with Greg, but I don't know how it applies anymore, is when I was concerned about you guys not being able to meet the 30% canopy coverage. Now I think from what you're saying, yeah, we can. I'm thinking, all right, look at lot 1, 2, the third lot. I overlaid your tree removal plan and basically where you've laid out your lots. And as I look at that and I look at lot 3, lots of trees on it. Lots of trees. Not so much up at the front, but a lot of trees. And I'm thinking, and it's, as you know, if you look on the topography, that is probably the highest and the flattest, least sloped area on this whole parcel. In my mind, that's a perfect spot for your neighborhood green. It's relatively centralized. That's also the spot where you can put in your cluster mailboxes that have to go somewhere on here. And if you did need additional trees to meet your canopy coverage, there's a bunch of them on there that would add to that.
Lot 3 is right here, just to
Yeah.
clarify.
So I don't want
Well,
to,
actually, well, you don't have this one. I actually drew in lot 3 on your plan here as I was doing the
Right.
overlays, and that's the one that popped up.
so,
But for me, and then I'm going to shut up. I feel like I've been dominating this whole meeting here. Is my hang up is neighborhood green.
okay.
So are you saying lose lot 3? You're saying lose one of their 12 lots for
Yeah,
neighborhood green?
that's what I'm saying. Unless they can come up with something better.
So let's just say that they decide to put another lot in the back where the trees are. So now we're gonna lose trees in the back.
Well, they're gonna have to redo their whole drawing, and they're really gonna get in some steep slopes then. The whole back end of this,
Well, I understand, but they could also grade back there.
Correct. I can fix slopes all day.
yeah, well, I mean, if you're gonna put in, I'm talking about the intent, the purpose of a green. You can get around
Greg,
anything.
could you read that one more time? Because I thought there was something on the end
There is,
that was relevant to this discussion.
if applicable, or when applicable.
Yes, ma'am. So I highlighted 4 sections of this portion of code. This is 917B. These are the specific conditions to conservation developments. I had highlighted that you should minimize grading. That is consistency with the existing topography, which is what we have discussed quite a bit. That is interconnected, which in solving the cul-de-sac issue provides connectivity, and I feel that has been soundly met. The idea that pedestrian pathways are required, whether that's in the form of a sidewalk or a walking trail. They have now indicated their walking trail on more sheets of the application. And the last is number 9, that a neighborhood green is required. The exact language is, to the greatest extent feasible, each conservation residential development should provide at least one neighborhood green, not less than 10,000 square feet in area, planted with shade trees at 40-foot intervals around the edge.
To the extent possible. That's what you started with.
To the greatest extent
Greatest.
feasible is the language.
The greatest feasible.
So if I can expand on that. We ran into this last year, Bill, specifically with that 100-foot buffer where the UDO was very explicit on if we could do 50-foot. And we got hung up on just a portion of that and ignored the rest of it. We complied to the detriment of our project. This is a similar situation, just a different apple. And at what point do we take into context the intent, as you say? Because this is a 12-lot subdivision. It is not a 200-lot. A neighborhood green of this size for this type of area in neighborhood would probably never get used, to be honest with you.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I can challenge you on that.
Okay, you can challenge it,
So-
but I wouldn't say that. I mean,
I honestly don't think, and for what purpose? To tear down more heritage trees or more trees, or, hey, you're the applicant and the developer, just get rid of another lot. It's easily said, but that's a significant financial impact to us.
I understand that totally.
And I want to use the language that's in that UDO where it gives us that exception where feasible. We have made every intent here to build something that is very manageable and acceptable to the town of Weddington.
And I think what I hear you saying is, if you lose a lot, this is not viable for your business model to complete.
Correct.
Backing up. when
But
you-
that's not the reason I don't want to do the green. The feasibility, as it's referred to, is the only location based on the design, because again, we had to go through a yield study. The yield study says I can build 12 lots, but I can kill more trees doing it without the conservation. We're reserving and preserving. We've made this a little bit more condensed based on UDA criteria. And we keep that green work on what is remaining land.
When you had your initial community meeting,
Yes.
okay? Your initial community meeting reflected 11 lots. When you made your, I call it the show and tell presentation to the town council, you got up and said, except instead of 11 lots, we now have 12.
If you recall, that was prior to the cul-de-sac change. So we had to make adjustments to reflect the cul-de-sac change. And by making that side road, it opened up more frontage, which allowed us to build that 12th lot. So if I get rid of the side road, which I'm happy to do, I'll go down to 11. But then don't meet the ordinance.
I think that's up to you. I'm just state my position in terms of.
I understand, but you're only taking a portion of
I don't want
that.
to make it sound like it's non-negotiable, but I think it's a very, very important element. And that's why in the UDO, we say required, optional.
If feasible, understood.
Feasible.
Yeah, a cul-de-sac or prohibited unless,
Okay.
to try to have as
But
much,
Bill,
yeah, go ahead.
They really can grade the heck out of the back of that lot, of that parcel, and put that ridiculous 10,000 square foot green back there. But the amount of damage that does, in my mind, completely negates the whole objective and of having a conservation subdivision. I mean,
I mean, we disagree on it. And that's fine.
yeah, I guess
I mean, a lot of those trees are going to come out. If I understand, last time you spoke about where you were going to squeeze in a neighborhood green, it's basically right where your sewer line is going, which is going to be some of it cleared out anyway.
But it's not flat.
No, I know it's not flat. And you guys have actually come back based on some of the other discussions where you've identified some 4-foot walls you're going to put back in there just to try to level out the lots that are there. You know, if you want to, yeah, you can put in a 10,000 square foot green back there. Now, whether you do, I wouldn't vote for this anyway. Here's a 4-foot wall. Here's a 4-foot wall. Here's a 4-foot wall. That's how you get it in there. And you certainly don't want to put in, I think you said it was a 15-foot drop, a 15-foot tall wall in there and then backfill it. So again, this is just my thoughts on it. I'll shut up. And I don't know what the thoughts of council are going to be, but I'm sure they put a lot of value in a neighborhood green.
All right, any other comments from the board members?
As far as the green, I think that it's okay without it. It would be nice, obviously, but with the trails added, and if we're gonna look at everything in detail, minimizing grading is a huge part of that. So I personally am okay without it in this one, especially for such a small subdivision.
Yeah, I was gonna say, such a small subdivision. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, it might be nice if they could, maybe, put some picnic tables or something back there to make it an area, not necessarily a neighborhood green. But I wouldn't want them to grade and disturb trees back there just because we want to have a neighborhood green.
Okay. Couple questions that I have, and civil engineer. Okay, so you've got your pond design. Looks like you got basically from the side pipes are size and whatnot. Your surface drainage is around the property on the side where you have the full home. You're basically taking a swell around.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that on the revised documents that we submitted, we did have what we showed as a swale kind of along that north side
Right.
to make sure we can go around trees and still
Right.
get something cut in there.
And with that, your pond calcs are pretty sound. You know that's how big the pond is going to be.
Yeah.
Plus, and you've got some variables you need to tweak it a little bit. You can go to depth.
Yeah, we could change the depth on it. The weir sizes were all to the 50-year. I think the calculations were submitted with the original application.
You're just looking at that with you change it with depth. You don't have to change the footprint of it. basically.
Correct.
That's-
Yeah, it would
that's
just be
what I'm-
adjusting the weir height on the overflow.
Okay. All right, that is the things that I had looked at. I think that had it. That had covered everything. All right. If there is no more discussion, is there a motion?
I have a question. we had talked about, I had this conversation with Bill and with Chris and everything about, feels like that the town council's asking us to be technical advisors to this. I don't feel like I'm qualified for that. You clearly are. We talked about Labella having a quote cursory look before, because they typically look at it after it's approved. Would the town council, would we feel better, or would the town council feel better or more confident if that they did a cursory look prior to? But quite honestly, it sounds like you could do that.
It's Labella. I'm not an engineer.
Ah, okay. You sound like one. You could play one on TV. Okay. But do you understand my point here? If the town council really wants us to say that this is a go, I mean, I can take the checklist and I can say, yes, they submitted this hydrology plan and this grading plan, but I can't really look at the grading plan and say, hey, it looks good to me. So if they want that kind of assurance, I can't offer that. What's our alternative?
That
Well,
can be
here's-
part- that
here-
can be
if I-
part of a motion.
If I can read this, this was on the letter Chris sent in. Again, apologize, couldn't believe here. My biggest concern is that Nancy and Scott have stated they could not constructively examine or review the actual plans and implied that other members of the board could not either, as they've noted in their statements and emails. For that reason, I recommend a condition of sending the plans to Labella for a quick cursory technical review to provide the council before their meeting. So I think that's what you were saying, Nancy.
I had that conversation with him and with you. I mean, if that's something that the town council,
One thing I want to be sure that the board's very clear about, our job is not to understand the calcs on the erosion, on the stormwater management. It's not up to us to design sewer systems. It's not up to us to evaluate that. That falls under other people's purview.
Yep.
Ours is to see that where they're going to put it, how does it impact the things that we do have control over? What is under our purview? This is a tree ordinance. This is the setback lines. This is the land use itself. So that's why we're requesting this information. We're not trying to get into the business of engineering
Right.
stormwater systems, nor are we qualified to do so.
Swales and ditches, that kind of stuff. And that's
between
all
you and
part of
CDEQ.
Exhibit 2B.
but
So-
it just seems like in the past that the council has been concerned about it. And therefore, perhaps did not look favorably upon an application because they didn't understand it either. So I'm just wondering, what is the fix there?
Well, we're all concerned about different things at different points in life. And what do we have, as someone explained it to me years ago, this is our area of concern and this is our area of influence. So the more we focus on this, the bigger this becomes.
Well, Bill has said it 3 times tonight that he wants it to be a complete and airtight so that when it arrives at the council's desk, that they are confident about it. And I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out how we get the confidence level up.
Maybe say preliminary stormwater lines and structure. Doesn't mean engineering drawing, construction drawing. It's just say, where are they going to be? Preliminary, because that can impact ground disturbance and tree. Preliminary calculations, proposed impervious surface and runoff volume, which basically is related to BMP ponds. And again, it all comes back to, does it impact ground disturbance that could impact the tree ordinance or maybe some other things in it.
Okay.
Well, if you look at page 82, there's a lot of stuff on there. Sounds pretty technical.
Well, that's what I was reading from.
I know.
Location of retention ponds, location of swells and ditches. And I think when you came back with your expanded plans, you showed ditches, you showed I think it was a temporary retention up at the front. So, and I don't know whether that was in the full pack or not. I mean, if it was, then this could have moved.
Again, that, and what he shows on that plan, that is an erosion control plan. That is not the stormwater management plan. The stormwater management plan falls in the erosion control.
Okay,
Again, we have no.
I understand it. My
Perfect.
point being, does it, and again, it comes down to ground disturbance. That's the only thing, we're, as a planning board, look at.
Okay. All right, so I'll go back to, do we have a motion for action on this issue, on this application?
Greg, I think we've got one condition maybe with you still, is that correct?
So I noted my burden of the applicant on the neighborhood green of why it wasn't necessary, because the exact language of the UDO is to the greatest extent feasible.
Mhm.
Tell me why it's not feasible. That was not necessarily a condition, but a challenge to the applicant for their resubmittal, which was provided here tonight. I think for the tree canopy portion, I've noted it before, I'll note it again, there's been a lot of discussion about how much work has gone into the application. They have put in a lot of work to understand the tree canopy information and the tree requirements. So if that's a lack of information provided by them, I feel confident that they can provide that in regards to the 30% or the canopy or the heritage trees. You're more than welcome to provide a condition that they provide additional information on the trees. I think it's fair for you to ask them to do so. The other thing I just talked about is the front 100-foot thoroughfare buffer. We've asked this in previous applications. When it's bare, when there's nothing there, just to say that we're going to plant 18 trees there with circles is not necessarily going to provide full confidence to the council that this is going to look like a complete new neighborhood, that this is going to buffer properties. We've reinstituted buffers and actual berms and mounds. And so I would, as my previous comment, I'd like to see a little more detail on what that 100-foot thoroughfare buffer looks like in terms of providing it from a landscape architect, or providing a rendering, or providing exact tree species, and not only the tree species, but the shrub species, the supplemental plantings that go on that berm and that mound. I think that's a fair condition as well. But most importantly, I think our goal here tonight, because we're meeting here a second time on this application, is to say we want a very thorough submittal that has been reviewed and vetted by the planning board. And I think saying, hey, let's have LaBelle look at it, that's what we pay him for. If that assures the town council that an engineer has looked at another engineer's work and feels that it is viable and realistic, then absolutely, let's add that condition to there.
Can I ask a question about the berms? Are the berms required? Because quite honestly, that that's not a natural landscape as you're driving down the road. The natural landscape and lay of the land. It's not a bunch of berms and things, because it's almost like they have that 100-foot buffer can do a lot of nice trees and big trees that could grow to be big trees. And so to require a berm, so is a berm required?
So the berm was previously not allowed. It is now, through text amendment, allowed again. Everyone's preference would be if we had 100 feet of existing trees, we would not touch them, and we would leave those 100 feet of existing trees. If there were trees in the front of this property, we would not encourage them to replant or to unnaturally grade the land just to make, a subdivision entrance.
I mean, I'm just thinking of driving by, especially of that stretch of road. The color in the fall is extraordinary. And so for them to put in, or we could ask them to put in like sugar maples or yellow or red maples in there to go with the rest of the existing vegetation along that road would be, in my mind, preferable to a berm with your basic, evergreen hollies and your pine trees and your little shrubs.
And I'm not a landscape architect, though I wanted to be, and I started to be one. But it's again, it's putting the onus on Keystone and Colliers and these guys to be like, listen, town council's going to want to know what this looks like. They're going to want to know the impact of this because it's so bare right now. What can you do? What can you add and supplement to provide confidence to this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the application with the condition that a detailed landscaping plan is provided for the 100-foot buffer.
I think that's part of Exhibit 2B anyway. I was trying to find it.
That's in here.
All right. Can you pull up the landscape plan?
Do you want to add anything else to that?
I would like to propose a friendly amendment that a second condition that we have Labella take a cursory look before town council.
So, I mean, they have engineers. I mean, are they gonna pay for LaBella to do it?
Yes.
Right? They would have to pay for that.
Yes, we would have to pay for that, and I actually object to that. It's not a process in your ordinance. You guys are very well equipped to make the decisions.
And I would say that they have engineers that could really look at, could answer any questions that came up in the next process.
I mean, you can make it a condition and the applicant can say, I don't want to meet that condition.
Well,
Right now, the motion is,
Right,
Let's
that's
clarify the
fine.
motion.
That's fine.
the motion is to approve with a detailed landscaping plan for the 100-foot buffer.
I'll second that.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, the motion passes 4-1.
Is it too late to put a note on there about why, even if we go around, why we think the green was not, or is the conversation we had enough for council?
The motion's been made and seconded and voted upon.
It'll be reflected in the minutes.
I think,
You can put something in closing comments. if you want.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. That being said, let's move on to closing comments.
Okay. Almost.
Scott, I'll start with you.
I want to thank the hard work, staff and planning board on this. I appreciate the applicant getting this information back to us in a rapid fashion so that we get this wrapped up. I do want to state also, I want to thank the visitors we had that come out and see what we do. Also want to state that for town council, while we do encourage a green, I think because of the rather small size of this subdivision and the unique topographical issues on this piece of property, that removing extra trees and doing some pretty serious grading just to have a green that I agree with the applicant would be very seldom used. It's not a good use of that natural area. Thank you.
I will echo your statements. Thank you to staff for always informing us on everything. And thank you to you guys, the applicant, for bearing with us as we do our first to be kind of in-depth review. I think overall it will be good for everyone, and thank you for your patience with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say too. Last time people referred to you guys as the guinea pigs,
Yes.
and I'm sorry for that choice of words there, but
Lick our wounds.
thank you for your patience with us, because it is a steep learning curve for everyone. And we appreciate you guys taking the time and the effort to go through all of this. And I think it will, also, I would like to echo what Scott's comments about the green. I feel the same way about that disturbing more natural area to provide a green is not within the spirit of what we're trying to achieve. So I think you guys have done well with it.
Thank you.
I just appreciate the additional information that you guys provided. I understand this process is, we're just starting it out with this new checklist, and there's going to be some bumps in it. So, if the discussion is that we want to have a community green and it has to be required with no caveats, then let's change it to that. But when you're talking about 7 lots or 8 lots or 12 lots, or it could be, I think the wording in there is important, because it might not be feasible for a smaller subdivision to put that in. So if we want to change that, we can have that discussion. But I think with the RCD, the 50% of the property that is conservation, I mean, it would be something that we'd have to discuss if you wanted to make it mandatory without the caveat.
I apologize for taking up so much time. I thought we had a lot of good discussion. I'm a little bit disappointed that there wasn't a condition of meeting the 30% tree canopy. That's a simple one. But of course, I'm on the opposite side of a neighborhood green. They're not required for R40. They're specific to RCD. And I know we have that if feasible. Well, I think what we're saying is we don't feel it's feasible to take out a lot of trees. And they're saying it's not feasible for us to lose a lot. So somewhere in there, we've got to find a resolution going forward. I'm done.
All right. That being said, I'd like to thank you all for bearing with us through this. And thank you to the planning board for extra time and extra effort, and to Chris and Bill and Greg, because I know we have talked significantly throughout this. Appreciate the extra work. That being said, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you all.
I owe all of you dinner.